Hey, welcome to another episode of Unwritten. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I am super excited today because my guest is Emma Gage, and she is a brand strategist and she's a single mom too. But what she does for her business is she helps women build unicorn businesses. So she helps them with their brand and their marketing. And she does it alone. She does it while being a single mom. So I totally relate to that. And she's killing it. So thank you so much for being here today, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, of course, the first question I'm going to have is, what is a unicorn business and how did you define that? And let's just start.
Yeah. So a unicorn business is a business that is independently owned and valued over $1 billion. So now I don't really have any aspirations to build $1 billion business, and the vast majority of my clients also don't, but they have significant ambitions to scale. So I tend to work with women who want to go bigger in their business and want to create a more valuable business, and that's where the strategy comes in. Because actually, you can get quite a long way with no strategy and some great tactics. And being very good at what you do, but this is about building a business that is bigger than you and is bigger than sort of selling your services. So that's why I talk about unicorn ambition, because actually having that ambition, whether you're pre-revenue, whether you've been in business for 20, 30 years, it almost doesn't matter. But that ambition changes the energy in a business, I think. So they're the kind of women I work with, and I think that's where I'm most able to help them as well.
Yeah, that's what differentiates women, especially that are fine where they're at versus have those big ambitions. So you're I'm envisioning almost like a rope, like you're helping them get to the top of the rope.
Yeah.
So tell me about how this kind of came about, because I know you have an interesting backstory. So can we go back and talk about where you were before and how you got to this business?
Yes, of course. So I've spent 20 years working in brand strategy in various guises. First of all, in London for a decade, where I'm from. And then I went to Asia. So I was in Singapore and Shanghai, but I worked all over Asia. So I've always been a strategist. I worked in advertising, in media, then into sort of kind of innovation agencies, and worked with some great clients, some sexy names, Nike, L'Oreal, Samsung, Google, Netflix. So some great projects for great clients, always really sort of strategically interesting. So, they're always trying to stay relevant, trying to stay cool, trying to make more money, look for ways that their brand can stretch in kind of to different spaces, whether it's a different sort of geographical market or with a different audience, or, is there a new sort of commercial opportunity? So, we worked on big ad campaigns, big advertising campaigns, but also, product and service innovation. So my skill set has always been about strategy and about solving strategic problems. That's the stuff I love doing. And I came back from Asia, having got divorced from my kind of husband. I was in Asia for a bit as a kind of single mum, but my daughter and I, she's 11 now, came back from Asia about 6 months before the pandemic. So 6 to 8 months before it's all a bit hazy. And I actually got made redundant from the business I was working at about, exactly 3 months after coming home, because I was heading up Asia for that business and I wanted to come back to London. We sort of fudged it for a bit, but you can't head up Asia from London. So I kind of knew it was coming. I think I probably hadn't really faced it, but I sort of knew it was coming. Still a bit of a shock when you get the email.
Yeah.
Especially having spent most of my money actually coming home, shipping and, getting a life home is actually quite expensive. So for a little bit, I was doing what I always did in my career, but for myself. And I had a brand. It was called Caravan Strategy at the time, and I was just doing the same work. But because I'd worked so extensively in China, it was all China work, which, what's coming next. With the pandemic,
Yeah, I mean, that was like the ground zero. So,
Literally couldn't have picked a worse, because I was flying back and forth to China and doing kind of China work. So yeah, not ideal, less than ideal. I did it remote for a bit because obviously no one was traveling at that stage. So it almost didn't matter to start with. We were doing kind of consumer research and a lot of the brand stuff remotely. But when the world went back, I guess I didn't really want to go back to traveling all the time because it's tough when you're a single parent. My ex-husband is in Asia, so I have no co-parent either. And I didn't want to be traveling all the time. So I retrained actually during the pandemic as a coach. And I started up the Wild Ones. And for a bit, I was coaching very senior women, entrepreneurs and sort of leaders in corporate. I did loads and loads of trauma work, different trauma qualifications, and I was helping them through burnout and to find their kind of purpose and passion again and solve some of the kind of problems that had and blocks that they were experiencing in their career, mostly as a result of kind of limiting beliefs and kind of, childhood traumas and things like that. So I was doing a lot of that work, which was great, loved it. But it just never felt like the business. It just always felt like it was sort of there. The weird thing is the name and the brand was always there. And so I knew that was right, but it was trying to find the business that fit the brand, which is clearly not the way anybody works.
wow.
But it's like, I knew it was the Wild Ones. I've had so many sort of brand manifestos and philosophies and things like that. And I always sort of made it fit, but it was fudging it a little bit. It just didn't feel like it wasn't the business. But it was a good business for a while. And I think then I sort of fell down the online business rabbit hole, really, of all of the sort of wild claims about how much money you would make and, get a funnel and do this and do that. And like, that's my background anyway in advertising. Like I know about, email marketing and advertising and marketing and things like that. But it was weird because something happened to me when I went down that online business rabbit hole where it was almost like everybody made me think I didn't know anything. Yeah. And I still remember paying for quite a few high ticket coaches, and my friends who've known me, decades and worked together would be like, so you managed the sort of advertising and strategy for Nike, but you're paying someone £5,000 to tell you about like email marketing. Like what? But I genuinely thought, but I don't know this. Like I don't know this. Like I'm a newbie. But actually, it was 2 years of just spinning in the business and feeling like I didn't know anything.
As you're paying out.
Yeah.
So you were giving your power
completely.
Away.
Yeah. Because it is hard. I was saying to somebody the other day, if you had a normal business, like an actual offline business that wasn't, mostly dominated by the online world, you would start your business, but you wouldn't be faced with messages like 5,000 times a day about people telling you you're doing everything wrong.
Yeah, like a hardware store.
Yeah,
right.
You just do your business. When I had Caravan Strategy, it's like, well, I had Instagram, but that wasn't how I created business. I had a profile. I was leveraging clients I already knew or friends of friends and clients of clients type thing. I was networking. I was writing think pieces on LinkedIn, but I wasn't 100% dedicated to I felt like I had a business, not an online business. Yeah. That wasn't easy either. So, the online business world does make things easier sometimes. But yeah, the noise around making everybody think that they're doing something wrong. A lot of my clients are in their 30s, mostly 40s, 50s, and they've had absolutely stellar corporate careers. And again, most of them feel like they're starting at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because they haven't got the follower count, which is like now I think, oh my gosh, it's incredible that I kind of fell for that. So I only have like X amount of followers. You forget like the 20 years of experience you've had before.
Yeah. But that was all part of now. I mean, to me, that was part of your training, to get to where you're at. You had to go through those feelings because your clients are now facing those feelings.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So the sort of swing away from coaching was just because I felt like personally triggered. I think it was quite, I've written a blog post about like leaving the cult of online coaching. I mean, I fell for all the promises thinking it was just inevitable, like these 20K months were just around the corner, which is embarrassing now, like it really is. But so there was a bit of that, but also I was just triggered by the fact I felt like it was kind of marketing and business 101. It was, I think the online space has done an amazing job at lowering the bar to entry, especially for women. For a lot of women that would never have thought of themselves as an entrepreneur or a founder or business owner. But it's also, it is also often business and marketing 101. That means a lot of people have got the same business.
Yeah. We're in the pandemic and a lot of people are making a lot of money, and you're kind of like, why am I not making that money? So did you kind of start thinking you were doing something wrong, or like you should be doing more, or kind of what was your mindset during that time?
I absolutely isolated it to I'm not showing up enough, because obviously that's the magic bullet, isn't it, on the online space? It's
That's
like
what they say.
Yep. I'm not showing up on lives. The thing is, like, you know, in my career, I was a CEO of an agency. I was senior. I had a profile in the industry. I would happily talk on stage and at conferences to hundreds or thousands of people, not that many here, I think. But for some reason, it's still showing up on a live is like a hostage situation for me. I look like all energy and personality gets kind of drained. So I just didn't feel happy with it. And also, you know, when you're in that sort of absolute panic about your business, it is hard to just show up and be kind of chill on a live. So I just never felt like I wanted to do that. And I completely made it about that. So it would be, well, if I was brave enough to do that, I'd be able to pay my mortgage. If I was brave enough to do that, I'd be able to do that. I mean, that's why I don't have that business. So I completely made it about that. And the irony is I barely do that, well, rarely ever now. And yet my business is completely different to how it was, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. So it's not really about that at all. But I completely made it about that. But what it also showed me is not just about the success of my business. I just felt like increasingly I was getting pushed to think, like, this is what you should be doing, because actually this is what you know, entrepreneurs need a different, especially at that level. You know, we talk about unicorn businesses. I think you can get to quite a good level with having some good tactics and probably like showing up and being visible. But to get beyond that, or to get to a stage where you're not constantly selling, or you're not constantly jumping on a live and like your life dominated by Instagram, you do actually have to think kind of bigger.
Yeah. And that's what you help women do. So I'm assuming you helped yourself do that. So what was your shift?
I think I've always had a brand. I've always had an idea behind the brand. I knew exactly what the Wild Ones kind of stood for. I think what I didn't have probably to start with was, I always talk about a red thread through everything. You need to know what your ambition is, the opportunity space that exists within your category or around your category. Then you need the idea that is disruptive within that opportunity space. And then everything is an opportunity to land it, which, you know, your business model, how you productize, what you call your services, your products, and your marketing, how you behave as a brand, like everything needs to tell the same story.
Yeah.
And I think the business didn't really tell the same story as the sort of thinking. I think also because I felt like a newbie within the online space, I don't just work with online entrepreneurs, but specifically within that space, I still believed that all the people with talking about money, with massive followings, who were that, you know, it's like that unspoken hierarchy. The people at the top, I just assumed were absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
And now I work with a lot of them and I know it's not true. I know people with massive followings aren't necessarily killing it. I know people with a high like profile personal brand don't know what to say in their marketing. or they've got a brand that's making a business that's making money, but they're bored rigid of what they're talking about because they've been doing the same, circling around the same niche for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Or people who have almost acted like an influencer and have built like extraordinary followings that aren't making any money because they haven't even really worked out the business model behind it.
Yeah. So they're almost killing themselves versus killing it.
Yeah.
But they're working for the brand or the popularity, whatever they're chasing.
Yeah.
But the business isn't working
at the time that was always trying to tell me, you need to go bigger with your skills, and your skills are so different. I kind of knew they were, but I just thought, I don't think people need it because they seem to like follow the roadmap that everybody sells, and they all seem to have like 7-figure businesses, or like it feels it shouldn't work, but seemingly it does. And then obviously now I know it doesn't work. So, but at the time I thought, well, it seems to be doing very well. And like, who am I to come in? Like, my business isn't doing as well as theirs because I've just started. So I think it's hard coming in with a real point of view when you're sort of new on the scene and maybe you haven't earned as much money. Like the scale, you come out with a sort of leadership position and a point of view when you're thinking, but I haven't got the receipts to back it up, But actually, it's not about that at all.
It's not. No. It's really about it's that hero's journey. It sounds like you were on that, and then you found your treasure within you, but you just needed a little bit of time to like see it.
Yeah.
Like you knew it was there.
I knew it was there, I think I always knew I was good at what I did. I mean, because I had a really good career, but what has taken a while is to really like to percolate, I think, is like my point of view and how that directly impacts women, female entrepreneurs. I think for the first year, even after I pivoted into like the brand world for entrepreneurs, I was talking a lot about the work I used to do. And I think people are like, oh, she worked for Nike. That's exciting. Yeah, it is exciting. A lot of people, lots of people have touched the brand at some point and kind of worked with them. But what I hadn't done is made the direct connection of what that work could do for a sort of female entrepreneur and startup. And that just takes time.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. When we first talked, we talked about the difference between men in business, men CEO and women CEO. And with women, we have to get past that, oh, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And men are just like, I'm going to go golfing this afternoon. My buddies, there's such a stark contrast of our own self-worth.
Yeah.
So when someone comes to you, do you kind of automatically see that? Oh, you're just struggling with your self-worth, and I'm going to help you, like you said, the red string. I'm going to help you connect not only your self-worth but your brand, and so everything's in alignment so you can just blossom. Is that how you describe?
Yeah, definitely. And actually the start point for brand, I mean, I look at like your business, your product, how you work, your equities, your experience, life story, what in the round. So but your ambition, your category, your kind of ideal clients, and but also beyond that, people you need to influence, which could also be your industry in the media and things like that. People who will give you funding, like in the round, like who do you need to influence? And I look at culture. So what are the big cultural trends that are impacting all of that, so that we can land on something that is really like relevant? But the first thing we do is the you bit. It's like, what are your equities? We know what the ambition is. We know where you are now. What have you got that we could stretch to there? In the same way that if Nike come to you and they say, we need to make more money, we need to be more relevant with kids in this particular area of this age who are into football, what you look at is you go back to look at the brand equities and what can stretch and what can't stretch. So they were some of my like favorite projects, like in the minds of consumers, what will they let you, how far will they let you stretch the brand? A drink brand, like what could we credibly say about the brand and the brand story? How could we change the color of the drink, the flavor of the drink, the way it tastes in your mouth? Like what is credible and what is too much? How can we stretch that brand? So, but it always starts with what the kind of equities that you have. And I think, and so I always say, when I work with female entrepreneurs, it's like what we're trying to get to is the credible stretch.
Yeah.
And I encapsulate it as a disruptive idea. I write it as a brand manifesto. And the most incredible thing always happens. Like there's a voice note on my website of somebody crying because she received all of that. But what's interesting about it is it's a credible stretch. So basically it doesn't feel like it's just made up or it's just something that's like a fantasy. You can absolutely see yourself in it, but it's stretchy. So everyone says well, it's a bit scary, but I can definitely see it's me. Like it's built out of something, your background or your story, who you are as a person. And I think that I mean, I love all the inner work and, I've done a lot of like energy work and mindset work and I love all of that. But I do think having that positioning changes the energy in your business. It takes you away from like self-promotion and you start thinking about like the idea that you're standing for. And actually that can do a lot for your, self-worth and how confident you feel, like your belief really in what you're working with.
You're like a fairy godmother. That's what you should call your business.
I'll update my LinkedIn bio immediately.
Yeah, you're a fairy godmother for women entrepreneurs that are just so busy that they can't see the forest for the trees, and you
can't see it yourself anyway because you can't. Like I worked with a woman who ran a film production business, and she did loads of films for like social causes. And actually, when we did her repositioning from sort of freelancer, gun for hire to actually starting going bigger and having a production business, the real gold in her story came from, which we talked about, like where she started out in film. She was in her business talking about the awards she'd won and the stuff she'd done like in the last 5 years. Actually, she was talking about how she used to make trailers for big Hollywood movies. And, tell me about that. And it's like the real art of a trailer is using condensing your like a Hollywood film or the best bits of a Hollywood film into something that is like tiny, a minute long, 2 minutes long or whatever. But she talked about all the effects that she was trained to use as well that evokes emotion in a really short amount of time. So that's exactly what she was doing in these charity films and films that were all about like sparking a social movement. But it's just really hard for you to make those links yourself because you just sort of disregard anything that won't, but you're focused on kind of now. You're also overly focused on what everyone else is doing. The biggest thing is like, just don't follow any competitors.
Yeah.
And then you find your own voice and your own ideas. But I think in the online space, it's really hard to think you've even got any ideas because you're surrounded by everybody else.
Yeah. I had to do that when I was a wedding photographer. I would just see all these amazing wedding photographer pictures. And it's like, why can't I be that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's because I'm not. But I had to cancel all that because once you get in your head about that stuff, it's just like a spiral. And you've been there, obviously.
Completely.
And so with the Wild Ones, which I love that name, it is kind of funny that you started out with CEO women because to me that doesn't sound like Wild Ones, and like you were saying it wasn't, but really it is because we're all wild on the inside. We're just playing these parts to try to fit in. So I love the name and I love what you stand for, and I'm just curious, where do you see it going?
I think right now, I mean, I do all the thinking and all of the doing on clients' business. So I do a lot of one-to-one work, and it has to become bigger than that. So that's the plan. So the plan is to build like the Wild Society, which is a quite a high-level mastermind over a year. A lot of what I do is about taking people out of the everyday and out of their category to see the bigger opportunity. So my newsletter is about that. My weekly newsletter, everything is about like using innovation techniques really to get people thinking bigger and more creatively about the business they're building. And actually that's what the Wild Society is built around. So rather than just becoming an expert in your category, it's like provocations. It's big questions like, if someone invested $1 million in your business tomorrow, what would you do with it? What is the kind of, what is the biggest ambition? What could you be building? Like the things that change your kind of thinking about your business and just take you out of that. Like most people have got a sort of 1 mile radius, going on of what they know about. This is about, giving you a space to sort of think bigger. And then I think at the other end of the scale, I guess creating a body of work and content that people can just buy into, probably at the start of their business journey, that is a little bit less me kind of doing all of the things. But I will still always do the kind of consultancy work because it is kind of what I love doing. And I work with anyone from pre-revenue businesses right the way through to 7-figure businesses that are wanting to kind of make the jump to 8 to solopreneurs, to ad agencies. But, the work we do is the positioning work, then how we activate it and how we create assets out of it. So I always say to my clients, like, well, we're going to build it as though we're going to sell it. And
yeah, that was what I had a question about that.
I don't think it's an ambition necessarily of mine, but that is always how I approach kind of building any business, which is why like the Wild Ones is an asset in its own right. Yeah. My personal brand is an asset that isn't sellable, but what you need to do is leverage that personal brand as much as you can to create assets that are kind of standalone and sellable. So, that is writing your philosophy down, writing what your brand means down. I've done work for bigger businesses where we distill what their internal culture is based on their positioning, what their marketing strategy is based on their positioning, or, we create a business within a business, which might be a passive income like online thing, or it could be into a whole new space that your current brand, if I had an aspiration to go into design, which I don't have, I would leverage my personal brand and probably create a spin-off part of the business that is about that. So thinking about building assets and using your personal brand to kind of to leverage it and to open up those opportunities is a really different way, I think, for people to think about like business creation.
It is. I had a friend, Anna, she's also was on my podcast last week. Yeah. And she builds businesses with the idea of selling them. And it's like, when I first talked to her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this all wrong for so long, because I thought, like you were talking, I thought it was about the lives. I thought it was about building the followers on Instagram. Yeah. I couldn't see anything larger than that. But what I wanted to, I just lost it again. When you think about your business as not something that's like a baby, something inside of you, but an actual, maybe if you think of it almost like a house that you just bought that needs to be rebuilt. It's almost you just have to remove yourself from, and you need help. Like that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah, you do need help. And back to your point about men and women being quite different. Yeah, I think like I talk about the need to be disruptive, and you have to be disruptive because everybody's saying the same thing. So if you just become a good version of the rest of your category, it's really hard. Yeah, this is about having like a killer idea and everything communicate, like being really singular about everything, because everything should be communicating back that kind of idea. What is hard is being disruptive before you've got the receipts kind of thing. It's like, I've just started my business. I haven't earned any money, or I've just had like 3 sales calls that haven't converted. Yeah. I'm finding it quite hard to go out and like, be disruptive. And when there are other people kind of earning money, that's the thing I think men don't worry about quite as much, because
they're just, women are not conditioned from a young age to be disruptive. And I think men are conditioned to take risks, to go out and to think big about the business, think big about wealth, about kind of what they're kind of creating. And so it always feels risky. Like one of the biggest, like with the inner work, one of the biggest things I've had to deal with is not feeling like a bad mum because I'm taking big risks with my business. And I don't think there are any men worrying about that. Like, does it make me a bad? I think it's rare. It's much rarer. And that kind of holds us back. So I always say it's like women are waiting to earn the space they take up, which I did for sort of 2 years. Despite stellar credentials, I still sat in the waiting room for 2 years, just waiting until my big business was big enough for me to have a voice. Whereas obviously that's the problem, then the business never gets big enough.
Yeah.
Whereas men will happily go out and claim that kind of, claim that space. And so that's what all this work is about, like giving women the idea and, the disruptive idea that just helps them sort of claim that high value space from the offset, like before they've even made any money, maybe.
Yeah. It's almost like, you disrupt their own thoughts even. Again, you're a fairy godmother for women. So if somebody wants to work with you and, I'm going to cut this part out because I have one more important question. Yeah. So for me and my business, my grandparents were grocers. They had a grocery store. And my other grandparents were farmers. So I kind of grew up in this entrepreneurial life of sorts. Did you have that growing up?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, not at all. And honestly, I feel like I was a bit of an accidental entrepreneur. And I wonder if the pandemic hadn't happened, that I wouldn't have done it at all. I never, ever, ever saw myself as that. And weirdly, I created a brand, but I really felt like I was a consultant, just like freelancing for a bit until a good job came along. Maybe I still feel like that. I don't know. But that made it easier for me to, if someone had said, you're starting, I never saw it as starting a business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't baked in at all. And in fact, the opposite has been baked in, like safety, safety, safety. I remember my grandmother used to say, like every time I got a promotion at work, she would always say, well, they'll want their pound of flesh now, won't they? But that's okay because they're paying you. Like, yeah, great. So it really made it, what was baked in was be very like safety conscious.
Be good. Stay in the lines.
Be good. Stay in the lines. And if you've got a job, just like hang on to it for dear life, no matter what. Just always hang on to it. And I think especially when you're a single mother, and I wrote a post about this last week, when you're a single mother, people just want they want to keep you safe, and it's out of like, it's well-meaning, but friends, family, it's like, oh God, are you sure you need to do that? Are you sure you need to do that? Like, so if I ever suggest I want a bigger house, or I might change my car or do something like that, I really have to battle with that because it feels risky. And I know people don't want that for me. And they'll often say, but you need that. And I just think when you're a family, there's a traditional sort of, there's a dad and a mum and some kids. You could have an enormous house that is still bigger than what you need. And people would just think you were really ambitious and doing really well. But there's something about being a single mum and going for that feels like just a little bit like foolhardy and risky and maybe a bit selfish.
Yeah. I know when I bought my son his car, because I do it all on my own too. I had to get through this process of, well, I'm not a man. How am I going to pick out a car? And then it's like, I just watch some YouTube videos. Yeah. I talk to people. Yeah. But yeah, every little step is like, I shouldn't. I don't know how to, should I? And I went through the same thing with my car. And then I had to realize, there's no bad decision here. Yeah. You want a new car? Go get a new car. And it's done. You'll figure it out. And I totally understand that mindset of, if you have a big house, you guys must be have this happy family, that husband and wife, you go on vacations. But when I go on vacations with my son, it's like, yeah, they're probably like, where's the guy in all this?
Yeah.
No, there's no guy. It's just me doing me. So how can people find you? Is your newsletter that goes out every week or ish?
My newsletter goes out every Wednesday. It was ish, but now it's pretty regular every Wednesday. It's called the Wild Edit, and it is a mix of interesting news stories and cultural like events that have happened. Some advertising, big brand stuff that's going. Like it's supposed to be like a midweek sort of palate cleanse, you know, to just make you think bigger about what is kind of going on, like take you out of your category for a bit.
I love it.
So that's, you can definitely sign up for that. I've also got a free brand playbook called Your $1 Million Brand. That is like basically all my thinking encapsulated into this playbook. And when you sign up for that, you also get, I think it's like 8 to 10 days of daily emails, which is like a brand boot camp. So, you know, people say they're very useful. So there's no selling. I'm not selling anything in any of that. It really is just a bit of a kind of boot camp, really, of like how to think differently about kind of brands, take some learnings from big brands. And then, it's on my Instagram, which is the Wild One Strategy. And then my website, which I think you've got links to. It's kind of one-to-one opportunities, but also I do like one-off strategy sessions for people, which actually 90 minutes and some pre-work, we get an awful lot of work done, especially if you've already got a business, you've already got positioning, and this is about a tweak, you know, this is about being more disruptive, giving you sort of fresh eyes on your business. We can get a lot done in 90 minutes.
Yeah. So if somebody is looking, they just want somebody to help them find the bigger picture that they can't see within themselves and come up with the strategy. Yeah. They can contact you and get started.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no prerequisites to how much money they make or anything like that.
No, none. Because actually, in the real world, no one calls themselves a 7-figure entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You know, it's like, it's just not a thing. So, it's business owners. And some people don't even have a business yet. I've worked with people for 6 months where we're working on the business and they're still in their corporate role. So I work with everybody from sort of, cross product, service, pre-revenue to established.
Yeah. I think the world needs to hear you, and I know it's very, your mind is very trained in corporate, but what I hear you say is you're healing people, honestly. So you're helping women heal those old wounds of I can't.
Yeah.
You know, so kudos to you, and I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's lovely to talk about it today.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add? Is there anything I missed before?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the playbook is a really good place for everybody to start, and that's free and, you know, downloadable. It's all the links are on the kind of Instagram. But I think that's a really good place to start.
That's amazing that you did that, and I'm going to download it today. So thank you so much. Thank you to my guests for being here and listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Hold on. Stop.